Just lay out, first of all, what you've been most critical of the Modi administration.
Well, we went into a lockdown fairly early in the pandemic evolution as it broke out in India towards the end of March, with about 4 hours of preparation and absolutely no clarity on where the government stood in terms of the kind of economic response it would offer against the backdrop of the lockdown. What we've seen unfold in these last 2 to 2.5 months since the lockdown has been large-scale economic distress, best exemplified in the fact that millions of casual workers and informal workers that come from rural areas into urban cities found themselves stranded and had to, on many occasions, make a very arduous and difficult journey home on foot, absent any kind of food or income support or relief measures from government. We today are in a position where we are now recognizing that it's economically unviable to continue with a hard, strict lockdown. Don't forget, the Indian lockdown was the strictest in the world. And as we are opening up, we are also reaching early phases of the peaking of COVID. The numbers are rising on a regular daily basis. And as a country, we still don't have enough clarity on what was achieved on the health front over these 2.5 months in terms of preparedness to deal with the peak of the pandemic as it unfolds. So right now, India is confronting both an economic crisis for which we still are awaiting a substantial package from government and a substantial roadmap for recovery, but also it's coinciding with the increased peaking of the COVID outbreak itself, which is beginning to stress the health system as it has done across the globe.
But, Yamini, I think you're also arguing here that it's not an economic crisis per se. It runs deeper than that, and that the whole pandemic has uncovered the fault lines, societally speaking, for India. How does it go about repairing those, and is there the will to repair those fault lines?
Well, let me put it this way. Absent the will, I think the country is going to, our democracy and the country as a whole is really going to suffer. So I don't think it's a question of will anymore as much as we just have to do this to hold together. It has brought out the deep social inequalities that the country has, I think, brushed over the carpet in the early phases of our growth cycle. And that's brought out most starkly by the fact that we have such a large population of informal and casual workers that move from poorer parts of India to regions which have seen better economic development. So the need to think about shifting our economic strategy so that it's more inclusive and better spread across the country is now critical, but also the need for the government to think much harder and build with full political will a more robust social insurance architecture that covers all Indians in a way that ensures protection against vulnerabilities. The biggest reality that this crisis has brought to light is the fact that a significant part of India, in fact, even as we moved out of poverty as a consequence of many decades of growth, is very vulnerable. So a single income shock can push you back very, very quickly into poverty. That's the reason why large numbers of Indians, when they lost their jobs, had to find ways, even by foot, to make it home. So we need to ensure that we have a better, more equitable strategy for growth that ensures all of India grows equally, and importantly, that we also have a more robust social protection system. Lastly, the pandemic has also, like I think across the globe, highlighted the fact that the failure to invest in robust public health systems leads to crises that we cannot manage, health crises that we find difficult to manage. The urgency of investing in health. India invests far lower in health as a percentage of GDP than any other comparative country. We need to really strengthen our health systems in order to ensure that we have a strong economy.
Very quickly here, Yamini, we saw the migrant population go back to villages in this urban to rural migration pattern. Do you expect then now for there to be rural to urban migration of the same proportion, or do you think that people may stay in the villages very quickly?
I think we are going to see two very interesting shifts. There will be a proportion that will stay in villages after all the hardships they have encountered. But, economic necessity will override a lot. And so you will, of course, see movement back. But I think the nature of that movement is going to change. And it will be much more shorter distances to areas that are closer to hometowns, unless we are able to build a stronger social protection system that ensures that people are able to access government benefits no matter which part of the country they are in. And we are also able to ensure a legal regime that protects workers better than we have done thus far. So we will see migration back into towns, no doubt, but I think the pattern of migration may well see some changes on account of the experiences of the last 2 months.
So could we see serious labor shortages in the city? We've heard from the likes of Jindal Steel, from the likes of Suzuki Motor, raising concerns about a shortage of labor.
Yes, absolutely. That's a very real challenge right now, especially as we are opening up manufacturing again. Partly because people have only just moved back, and I don't think, in light of the way in which the pandemic itself is unfolding and the chaos in terms of mobility across state borders, it's going to be moving labor back into factories is going to be easy or swift. But if you take a long view, of course, there will be mobility back into urban areas for economic reasons. But this is not going to be easy. Both private capital as well as the state will need to do a lot more to reassure labor that their basic rights and dignities will be protected before people are willing to move back and come to work. And that's the challenge that many of our big manufacturing units are confronting today.
You talked about income shortages, the poorest people in India getting hit for a second time since 2016, first by demonetization and now by COVID. Could this prolong India's recession?
Yes, in fact, don't forget, between demonetization in 2016 and the pandemic hitting, the economy was in any case going through a fairly significant slowdown. We recorded a very, very low GDP growth in the last quarter of the financial year that just passed before the pandemic hit. So overall, wages were down. Key drivers of the economy, from automobiles to agriculture, were going through a period of depression. And this, of course, is pushing it further. So it is unlikely that we are going to recover with any speed, even as the pandemic itself runs its course. Some economists are expecting that it will take at least till 2022-23 before the economy sort of slowly gets back on its feet. But I think there are also some moments of opportunity in the crisis, as the government is now trying to push some reforms.